Renee Ocampo pulled her hatchback into the cracked parking lot of the Starbird Diner and killed the engine. It was barely 6, but dawn was already skimming the horizon, painting the chrome-striped facade a milky rose. The building reminded her of an aging movie star caught between nostalgia and neglect. Gleaming curves, streaked windows, a sagging neon sign that hadn't lit in years. She stepped out with a roll of plans under one arm and a crate of California citrus under the other. In 3 months, if everything went right, she would reopen these doors and prove farm to table could exist on the wrong side of Route 41. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old grease. A thrumming silence pressed against her, the kind found in libraries and mausoleums. She set the crate on the once mint-green counter and breathed in the ghosts of fried onions, milkshakes, and someone's cologne. "Morning, old lady," she whispered to the diner. "Let's get you cooking again." Unseen in a corner booth, the ghost of Frankie Beaumont twitched at the intrusion. For 7 decades, he had floated through these aisles, sometimes with rage, mostly with sorrow, and the building had become as close to a body as he'd ever have again. Between midnight and dawn, he replayed memories he could barely contain. The clatter of plates in 1956, the way Sadie Hall's laughter once braided with the jukebox's tinny horns, the acetylene flash of the fire that ended everything. The Starbird's decay mirrored his own stasis. He preferred the diner quiet, so he could imagine it pristine, but this new woman came humming, lugging boxes, talking about heirloom tomatoes, as if the future had not already forgotten him. Renee wrestled open the kitchen doors and surveyed the equipment. "Yikes," she muttered. Burnt oil stamped the fryers, spiders curtained the ventilation hood. But the bones were good. Massive flat-top griddle, 6-burner range, a walk-in the size of her first studio apartment. She grabbed her phone to snap photos for the contractor. The battery icon winked from half charge to empty and died. Renee frowned. She'd plugged it in all night. She reached for the overhead switch, but the fluorescence remained dead. A fuse, maybe. She shrugged and inspected the stovetop by dim window light. Frankie flickered near the breaker panel, panicked. Each new owner over the decades had tried some version of restoration. Most had stripped booths or sold vintage stools for quick cash. Some had wanted condos, others a themed nightclub. But none had seen the Starbird as anything except a prop. This woman, he sensed, was different. Her voice carried care, and that unsettled him even more. He didn't want hope. Hope complicated departure. He didn't want to leave until he understood why he'd stayed. And 67 years hadn't yielded an answer. Still, he couldn't let her rummage through his memories unhindered, so he drained the fuse box just enough to frustrate her. "Great," Renee said, smacking dust from her jeans. She rifled through her tote for a flashlight. Something rattled behind her. She spun. A sugar shaker lay on the floor, rolling in lazy concentric circles. No rats, she thought. Too big. Maybe wind through a cracked pane. She upped the volume of her internal pep talk. "You've cooked in worse places. You've fed festival crowds with 2 burners and a camp cooler. A busted fuse and a spooky sugar shaker won't break you." She propped open the back door for fresh air. June sunlight spilled in and glittered off chrome napkin dispensers, briefly resurrecting the room's old glamour. Renee imagined customers lined along the counter. Truckers, teen dates, weary nurses from the night shift. She almost heard swing jazz under the white noise of the highway. The vision pulsed so vividly she grinned. Then faintly, the real jukebox in the dining room clicked. Frankie hadn't meant to touch it, but her smile vibrated through him like electricity. One of the 45s inside, a scratched recording of Earth Angel, shifted onto the spindle. The arm dropped, the record spun. A speaker, silent since the Reagan administration, hissed and offered 2 gentle bars before the power cut out again. Renee startled, heart drumming. Logic told her she'd find a squirrel's nest chewing wires. Her gut told her something wholly different. She stepped toward the jukebox and pressed her palm to the glass. The machine was unplugged. The cord coiled behind it like a fossilized boa. "Well," she whispered, "hello to you too." Frankie hovered inches from her cheek, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. No living soul had sensed him since 1979, when a teenage graffiti artist swore he'd felt cold breath on his neck. Frankie retreated, embarrassed by his sudden boldness. Intimacy had died with him. He wasn't sure he remembered its rules. Renee exhaled and laughed, a shaky, half-dare laugh a kid might give an unseen thing under the bed. "If someone's here, thanks for the welcome." She rapped on the jukebox's glass. "Sound system still works." She shrugged off the creepiness the way a chef shrugs off knife nicks. "If you acknowledge every cut, you never cook." By 9, the contractor arrived. They traced circuits, scheduled hood cleaning, and sketched exterior paint. Frankie watched her negotiate costs, joke about gentrification, fight for authentic restoration. He noticed how she tucked her hair behind her ear when calculating figures, the decisive way she sliced the air when describing her vision. Open at sunrise, pancakes with stone ground flour, blue plate lunches, coffee roasted in town, a community space, not some Pinterest cosplay. When the crew left, she remained, scrubbing counters, cataloging dishes. At dusk, she microwaved ramen on a camping stove, seated in a booth whose vinyl had cracked like desert soil. Frankie drifted opposite her. He wanted to say he'd cooked 1,000 blue plate specials here, that her optimism made the room feel alive again, that she should run before disappointment rooted in her bones as it had in his. Instead, he stared at the steam curling from her cup, and a memory seized him. April 12th, 1956. He, 23, a Navy vet turned fry cook, had balanced a bowl of chicken noodle for Sadie, the new pie baker, while the jukebox crooned Frankie Lyman. She'd teased, "Serving me dinner on the clock? Scandalous, Mr. Beaumont." He'd replied something gauche and charming, and she'd laughed. 2 weeks later, the kitchen flared. An oil drum had ruptured near the back door, and Frankie died trying to drag her out. They found his body in char. Her body steps from the exit, and nobody knew if they'd been a couple or colleagues. In truth, he never even kissed her. His regret burned hotter than any fryer. Renee slurped noodles and pulled her laptop to design menus. Frankie wished he could warn her about the fire hazard the old gas line still posed. He moved to the knob, tried twisting it, but his intangible fingers slid through. Frustration surged, spilling into the room as a sudden chill. Renee hugged her hoodie closer. "Tomorrow," she told the air, "I'll get the heater working too." That night, she set up a folding cot between the pie case and the soda fountain. The building had no official security yet, and paying rent on her tiny studio downtown felt wasteful. She lay beneath a recycled wool blanket, listening to coyotes bark in distant fields. An emotion halfway between courage and loneliness fluttered inside her. When she drifted asleep, Frankie ventured nearer. Moonlight splashed through the clear-story windows and pooled around her hair like mercury. He studied her hands, scarred by years of hot panhandles. He noticed a small tattoo on her wrist, a whisk crossing a sword. Beneath it, the words, "Feed them well." Every pixel of her exhalation seemed ferocious with life. The ghost realized, with a pang so sharp it almost felt mortal, that he wanted to taste her flour-dusted laugh, to confide in her, to be seen. Desire surprised him. He'd thought desire belonged only to the body. Over the next week, they built a vocabulary of disturbances. Renee would enter humming, "Morning, friend," and Frankie would swing a chrome stool just enough to squeak, if she lost a pen, he'd roll it into sight. He began writing messages by heating his essence against metal surfaces, which cooled slower in the air, revealing faint, fogged letters. The first time she noticed, "Who are you?" she choked on her coffee, but quickly regained composure. She answered aloud. "Name's Renee. You?" "Ghost," he spelled. Then after a pause, "Frank. Nice to meet you, Frank. Love what you've done with the place." He scrawled. "Ha ha." Communication improved. She asked yes or no questions. He could answer with one flicker for yes, two for no. Eventually, he attempted cursive across the stainless counter, his letters like pale smoke. She learned he cooked here, loved big band, hated the taste of licorice. He learned she grew up the daughter of migrant pickers, put herself through culinary school on scholarships, and left a Michelin-tracked path in Los Angeles after burnout singed her joy. She had come home to the Central Valley to resurrect something small and honest, something the people who raised her could afford. They kept secrets, too. Renee never told him about the divorce papers she hadn't signed yet. Frankie never told her how he died or why he remained. Such topics felt heavy, saved for a later course neither was sure would arrive. July sharpened its knives, and progress accelerated. Electricians rewired the dining room. Volunteers from a local preservation society repainted walls glacier blue. Farmers dropped off crates of squash and berries, lured by Renee's promise of fair prices and free coffee. Frankie assisted invisibly, holding doors during rushes, extinguishing stray sparks when welders clipped old ducks. A few workers reported uncanny breezes, but Renee laughed it off. She didn't want anyone spooked away. One afternoon, she danced between tables with a clipboard, mapping seating flow, when a call buzzed through her repaired phone. "Ocampo," she answered. Her expression collapsed. "Investor trouble," Frankie heard her say. "Budget shrink, deadline cut." He felt the room's energy vacuum away. She ended the call and sat in the booth, pinching her eyes. 3 weeks, she muttered. We open, or they sell to a gas station chain. 3 weeks for permits, final inspections, soft launch. Impossible. Frankie drifted in front of her, fingers of cold brushing her cheeks as if to wipe invisible tears. He spelled on the formica, "Can I help?" Renee snorted. "Unless you can expedite health inspections or drum up press, I'm done." She rose, anger fueling her motions, and yanked a tarp off the jukebox. "Stupid nostalgia money pit." She slammed a fist against the glass, and a .45 dropped. The machine lit in turquoise glow she hadn't wired yet. Music burst. Shboom! The bulb's reflection shimmered in her wet eyes. She laughed through a sob. "Fine, Frank. Play DJ." The song lifted her shoulders, and a wild idea hatched. If she couldn't meet investors' metrics, she could win public love. Viral love. She grabbed her camera. "Frank, ever wanted to be famous?" The next morning, your Starbird haunting trended on social media. Renee posted a video, a pancake flipping itself mid-air, a sugar shaker sliding across counter to refill a cup, jukebox powering unaided. She paired it with a playful caption, "Soft opening preview with my resident ghost chef, seats going fast." She expected curiosity, maybe local news. She didn't expect 200,000 likes in 24 hours. Food bloggers begged for reservations. Ghost hunters booked motel rooms. Investors renegotiated. Renee, though, worried she'd exploited her friend. That night, she addressed the air. "You okay with this?" Blink once, yes. Twice, no. One flicker. She sighed relief. "Thank you. I'll make this place worthy of both our names." Frankie absorbed her gratitude like sunlight, yet something tugged at him. The diner grew louder, busier, nearer to how it had been the night of the fire. Memory and present overlapped, and he feared history repeating. He revealed none of this. Instead, he traced a question on the window condensation. "Why you stay?" She stared at the letters. "Why do I stay here?" she echoed. "Because I belong where ordinary folks can taste extraordinary food without needing a black card." After a breath, she added, "And because I met you." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Why do you stay?" "Light," he wrote, then erased. "Love," he tried, wiped again. Finally, trap. Renee softened her voice. "Frank, what happened?" He trembled with the effort to manifest. Letters formed, jumbled, vanished. "Griddle, oil, Sadie? Sorry." She pieced together the tragedy. "You tried to save her," one flicker confirmed. "But she still died." Two flickers. "No." Confusion knitted her brow. Frankie pushed harder. "Not dead." And then, "Give letter." Heat rippled through the cutlery tray. A butter knife shot toward the back storage closet, clanging against a locked cabinet. Renee followed, pried the door open, and inside found a rust-flecked tin box stuffed under ledgers. She knelt, heart roaring. The lid squealed. Inside lay a folded parchment. Sadie Hall, C.O. Beaumont. The postmark dated 1963. Renee gingerly opened it. "Dearest Frank, I heard the fire took you and felt my heart stop. I lived, but everything tastes of ash without your jokes on the line beside me. They won't tell me where you rest. If love can cross, find me. I'll be at Rosie's Bakery in Fresno every dawn until I die, hoping." The paper quivered in Renee's shaking hands. "She survived," she whispered. "She waited for you." She looked up, and Frankie blazed brighter than ever. But pieces of him flaked away like sparks. She realized the diner had hidden the letter. The day it arrived, maybe lost in renovations, maybe buried by some manager. The knowledge struck him now like bells. Sadie lived a life he never reached. His anchor fractured. "We can still find her. Maybe her family," Renee said, voice thick. "Give you peace." Frankie's form wavered, expression torn between yearning and dissolution. Renee remembered stories of ghosts bound by unfinished business. Closure might free him, but freedom meant losing him. She swallowed her selfishness. "Tell me what you need." "Right back," he scrawled. She fetched a blank order pad, scribbled, "Sadie." Frank made it to Fresno at last. "He never stopped loving you. Thank you for waiting. He's safe now. Love, R." Frankie guided her hand to the jukebox. She slid the note behind the plexiglass window, tape squeaking on chrome. Music thrummed, Earth Angel again, but softer, as if seeping from two eras at once. Frankie turned to Renee, translucent edges glimmering. He brushed icy lips against her knuckles, a kiss so delicate it felt like snow rather than skin. Renee's tears warmed the chill. "Will I see you again?" A gentle single flicker. "Yes." Then another, slower, maybe. He formed one final word on the counter. "Thanks." Light flooded the diner, every bulb Renee hadn't installed sparking alive. The jukebox shot rainbows across the stainless. Then, like mist in sun, Frankie dispersed. The lights dimmed back to normal. Silence followed, thick as cake batter. Opening day arrived 2 weeks later. The Starbird's neon glowed anew, its wings of glass tubing flapping luminous cobalt. A line stretched beyond the lot. Reporters asked about the ghost. Renee simply smiled. "He's part of the family." She worked the griddle, flipping sourdough pancakes whose edges laced like doilies. Now and then, a utensil clanged inexplicably into her waiting hand, or the jukebox played the next perfect song before she could choose. Customers gasped, delighted. Renee just winked at the empty corner booth. At closing, she tallied receipts. A sellout. She locked the door, sat at that booth, and poured 2 cups of coffee. Steam twirled in the air as if shaped by invisible fingers. She raised her cup. To hope, impossible deadlines, and love that crosses more than miles. A soft breeze ruffled her apron. The jukebox selected a B-side she didn't recognize. A languid sax solo tender as promise. Renee leaned back, eyes half closed, and let the melody, and whatever might yet linger beside her, cradle the diner until night surrendered to dawn.